Hi, I'm Caroline Peterson. Good to talk to you again, the director for this film that we'll be discussing today. So, just want to thank you again for coming to talk to me. I'm really excited about this project's potential. So, I'd love to give you some of my interests heading in, kickstart it. That sounds good to you.
Yeah, perfect. I'm Alan Chan. I'm a vice president with National Artist Productions. I'm a brand new VP, so I'm very much excited to be working with such a talented director as yourself, and hopefully get this movie going.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for this opportunity. It's both a creative achievement and commercial success for us both. As a director with some recent accolades, I know what kind of collaboration it takes to turn filmmaking into a high quality piece. And I'm committed to delivering what meets both of our goals. I'm passionate about bringing the highest level creativity and professionalism to this film that I truly believe has potential to become a blockbuster. To make that happen, I prioritize flexibility to make critical creative decisions to ensure final production is exceptional and successful for us both. I know firsthand how time and resources put into creative freedom can elevate a project into a hit, and I want to ensure cohesive vision from start to finish, which requires a level of editorial control and time that protects the quality of the film. This film has the potential to resonate with audiences on a massive scale with both domestic and international markets. Star studded cast, amazing locations, compelling storyline. I think with the right investment, we can turn this into the next big hit together. And if we get this right, I think it could open doors for us down the road and solidify both our industry reputations as visionary producer and director team creating top Hollywood films. I'm confident that with the right decisions and resources, this film will be a major success. That's why a fair share of the success is important to me. This is a high stakes project, and if it performs as expected, we should both benefit highly. A bonus structure that reflects the film's strong potential aligns our interests by reducing upfront financial risks and ensures that we're both working towards the same goal, making a film that not only wins hearts but also dominates the box office. I see this as a lasting partnership where we can each contribute our strengths to make something truly special for mutual benefit. And I'm committed to delivering a commercially successful film. With the right support, whether through editing, decisions, post production time, or budget, I'm confident we can make it happen. So I'm really excited about sitting here to talk to you today through some of the terms that we want to look at for a potential agreement for this film. So would love to hear what your interests are, particularly looking ahead in such a major film as this, where your priorities lie in contemplating the package of this sort.
No, definitely. I think that our interests align fairly well. Like you said, you have had tremendous success with your previous two films, and that's something that we would love to, take into account whenever we, work on the details of this future film. That being said, it is my first major motion picture deal
Okay.
since my promotion. So I have been tasked with, while we definitely want to give you creativity and have a commercial blockbuster film, we do need to make sure that we manage the limited resources that we have and maintain within the budget. Hopefully we'll allocate a substantial enough budget for you to accomplish all your goals and choose your the cast and a production schedule accordingly. That being said, would you mind if I asked you some questions about where your goals and concerns lie with the
Please
project?
do.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
So, what aspects of this film and this production excite you the most here?
That's a great question because it all honestly excites me, and I think every piece of the production vision is important to this. More specifically, I think that having adequate time to be able to, and the editing process in general is really important. So having enough time and resources for the editing more specifically is really important to me, and having that editorial control as a creative designer and a director as myself, as I've seen in my previous films, have are what have made it such a big success. And so that's really important to me. As well as, casting is important too. Top names kind of get that box office success. And then locations as well makes it visually appealing, and audiences really love to see kind of more exotic spots going on than more local. So those are just a few of them. I know that you mentioned budgetary things. Um, how does the production studio, I guess, view the budget going into kind of like pre-production, production, as we head into allocating for different aspects of the film?
So that's kind of what we're here for, I suppose. I want to make sure that the production budget, pre-production budget that we had in mind sits right with you, and that
Definitely.
you feel that it's enough to make the rest of the project go smoothly. I mentioned previously that that the studio is very concerned about um, you know maintaining the project within the budget, while at the same time kind of giving you as much creative freedom as you need to make this a success. One thing we did notice was that your previous two films, while they were tremendously successful, we noticed that you went over budget a little bit with them. Could you tell me a little bit more about why that was?
Definitely. There were some issues that we encountered as we were filming, that needed some script rewrites and reshooting for some scenes that I believe could have been, allocated for on the front end with a bigger pre-production budget that we could have avoided further down the line, and that made our budget go up substantially. And so I've definitely learned from that experience. And that's something that I find important here as well, is making sure that we have the resources to be able to smooth out those issues on the front end before we encounter them. So that was kind of the main issue there.
Okay, yeah, great. Thank you for telling me about that.
Of course.
That's again, I think that's a big reason that we kind of are having this meeting, is so that doesn't happen to any project we work on in the future, right? Um, do you have any ideas about your casting preferences? I know you said you wanted stars. Do you have people specifically in mind?
I do have a couple. I do want to focus on a couple things that I think both of our interests are pretty heavy leaning towards before we get there. Is that okay?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Just off the bat, would love to hear kind of what the production studio has typically seen with control in the editing process, post production, what that looks like for you.
Yeah, so I mean, the studio definitely wants to have some creative control over the post production process. That being said, it's not so much as to limit your creative decisions as much as it is so that we have a degree of control over the budget. Essentially, again, this most of my points and are going to reflect on what has been instructed to me by higher ups in the studio, which
Okay.
is we need to make this under budget. Um, Additionally, we would like to meet the release window of it being a summer blockbuster, because I'm sure you can agree that summer blockbusters, there's a big market for that.
Mm.
And so we're willing to give you enough creative control, but we may need to have some assurances that we can still meet our restraints.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, studio is more focused on the financial budgetary issues rather than the creative control sort of aspects of encountering the filmmaking process off the bat.
Yeah, I think that's 100% correct. I mean, we're going to let you do what you do best. And obviously, you have been great at doing that. So, yeah.
Gotcha. And in terms of the finances off the bat, I know salary and bonus are important aspects that would like to get some footing on your perspective on. Just to give some context, in my previous film, that kind of kick-started where I am today, and I'm so grateful for. I was paid a base salary of about 400,000. And so I'm looking to see above that based on where I sit in the industry currently. So I'm looking around like 750,000 right now. And then in terms of my bonus going off of that, I think I highly value the bonus because it's tied more to the success of the film than rather upfront costs for the production studio. And so I think 15% bonus is something that's important to us. So I kind of just wanted to give you that perspective off the bat because I know finances are important for you. So I wanted to get your perspective on how you typically structure bonuses for directors in your work. Get some context on that.
Yeah, so I think that we are probably within the same range with the base salary here. I
Okay.
do think that the 15% is a little high for the bonus structure. We could probably definitely agree to a bonus percentage, but I
Okay.
definitely don't think that's going to be a 15% number.
Gotcha. Um, is there a percentage that is more of a range that the production studio would be more inclined to give, or what is typically done
I
by the
think
studio?
I think typically we usually don't give a profit sharing
Okay.
percentage. That being said, um, if we can have some assurances that we can produce this in a reasonable amount of time, under budget, I may be able to, make an exception here,
Okay.
given your tremendous success in the
Okay.
past.
Gotcha. Um, I mean, since the editing creative process for me is really important, I think I would be willing to be flexible in the finance areas because I know that's really a big interest of yours. In terms of editing control, I would really love to have full control. I know that my creative interests in this are a huge part of the success. And I think keeping the vision cohesive throughout the entire film and to the final product is really important. Editing control for a director reflects the industry standard as the creative leadership in the filmmaking. It's especially important for a romantic thriller like this to keep the pacing and thematic development and storytelling consistent throughout the film. And I think it's just essential to the quality of the film overall. And so I would love to get your perspective on if that would be a possibility, I, if a lower gross percentage could be met, going down from the 15%, if we could work towards director control of the editing process.
I think that we may be able to work, trade some points of the gross profit share with the
Okay.
creative control process, especially since it seems like that's very important to you.
Mhm.
As we continue here, I'd like to hear your thoughts about kind of grouping the issues we are going to discuss into first, the financial aspects, which would include, your base salary, the
Mhm.
profit sharing percent number,
Mhm.
the pre-production budget, and then secondly, possibly grouping the rest of the creative issues such as location,
Mhm.
location budget set for you,
Definitely.
editing time, post-production schedule, and
Mhm.
then finally, a little nitty-gritty stuff, which would include casting of, crew and
Mhm.
cast members.
Mhm. I think that's a great way to approach it, and I think sounding from the interest that we both are aligned on, um, controlling the editing process and also the financial buckets of these issues we're talking about, probably we prioritize first and then move on through the rest if that works with you.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. So in terms of the bonus percentage, I think we would be willing to go down a bit for more editorial control. I think the bonus percentage is probably more important to us than the base salary, just
Sure.
because it is tied to that success and carrying through, and because I am confident of the success of this film. I think that should reflect also the value that I bring to it. So I definitely believe that a bonus is important to me in producing or in creating a film like this, especially a large one. And so I'd be willing to go down a little bit. But is there somewhere in the middle we could meet? I know you said you don't typically do bonuses. I think the industry standard is it is typically done for major films of this size. So is there a more middle ground that you think would be more acceptable?
So you mentioned that you got paid $250,000
Yes.
base for the last film. Did you get a profit sharing percentage in the last film?
That is a great question, and I believe I did. I think it was around the industry standard, which is about 10%. And it really depends on the film itself. It's pretty fact oriented, and so that since that film really kickstarted my career, it was kind of before the major successes, before the awards I received. So now in the industry, is kind of why I am expecting a little bit higher of a salary. But in terms of the bonus, I know that is important for you for financials long term. And so, really prioritizing the editing in this sense. So, seeing maybe if we can put together, salary and bonus percentage, maybe compromising with that editing control, and your thoughts on how that would look.
Yeah, I think that would be great. In terms of potential success, do
Mhm.
you see anything with this film besides what you previously stated? How it would differentiate from your previous films?
Yeah. So I hate to toot my own horn, but it really, because of my Academy Award nomination and Silver Globe Award, it really has kickstarted my name in the industry, and a lot of studios are willing to work with me now, and it's a pretty competitive market, and so I think that my success is a big evaluation of where it will go. That being said, also the investments put into this that I think are worthy of this film for such a major size will also contribute to the major success. And so, working with a production studio like you, I think we can really collaborate to make it even more successful potentially than where I have seen. So, it really just comes down to the details of, can we get some great cast members and locations, but also the creative vision, I think, is what will drive this to success.
No, yeah. I mean, honestly, in my opinion, I think you should toot your own horn. Like you said that you wanted
Thank you.
a
Sorry.
star-studded cast member. I think we have a star, a highly awarded director too is what we want, for the optimal film. Um, that being said, have you mentioned about a bunch of studios wanting your project? Have you approached any other studios?
There are a couple that are interested, but obviously we reach out to you first and want to solidify a deal that is in both of our best interests. And so if we can get that, then I would love to work along with you on this route.
Yeah, definitely. We appreciate you talking to us first about it.
Of course.
So I want to clarify in terms of the budgeting, the pre-production budget.
Yes.
What kind of expenses does that mean to you?
It's a great question. So pre-production budgeting is kind of like the scripting, setting up the casting and the sets, the costumes, the design, everything that goes into pre-shooting. So setting that up on the front end allows us to smooth out any issues while it's happening, and so it just kind of really fortifies the I guess the level of readiness we are for the film itself, and sets it up for the highest quality it can be.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I think we're aligned in that in terms of what that means and what it'll cover.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what I was thinking in terms of the financial aspects of this. To start off, I was thinking that we start with a base salary of $500,000 base for you. We're thinking that a pre-production budget of $250,000 would be adequate.
Okay.
That's what the studio has ran numbers, and they've decided that for a project of this size, that would be enough. And then I know that you have also wanted a budget for the personal location budget.
Mm-hmm.
So that may tie into how many outside locations we do. So that definitely up the change a little bit. But we're thinking that we start off at possibly 300 per day per diem on that, and then in terms of the gross bonus profit share, we were thinking 2% on that.
Okay. And then could you just to start off with the bonus, because I feel like that's pretty important to both of us here. Could you just give some kind of metrics or structuring to how you typically, or what factors you would put into that percentage? Because I was starting at 15%. I'm willing to go down, but I would just love to hear some context for the 2% that you were thinking.
So, I mean, I think that number is conversely related with how successful we think a film will be. Again, deeper input might be a better question for the studio's number guys we have working in the back.
Okay.
But, if usually from understanding, if we don't think a film will be that successful,
Mhm.
I would think that we would give a director a higher percentage. Whereas if we expect success from it, that 2% number might be hundreds of millions of dollars,
Mhm.
right? I mean, so we expect you, given your previous experience and successes, to produce a great film, blockbuster.
Mhm.
So we think that the 2% number is more than fair. The as I understand it, that this movie is going to be kind of a mash of the Titanic and the Da Vinci Code.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sure you're well aware that Titanic grossed over $1 billion, so 2% of $1 billion is a significant chunk of change there, right?
Yeah, totally understand where you're coming from. It's a lot of money to think about, but I think it being tied to this success is not only reflective of the bonus being paid to the director, but also of the financial success that the production studio is seeing as well. So I think it's a two-way street there, and I think because it is such a success, a director should have a little bit more of a direct financial tie to that, especially with the creativity and direction put into that by the director. So I think more along the lines of 7 or 8% would be realistic. I know that that's a pretty important thing for me, but willing to go down a little bit. I know I said the salary was around 750 to what I was looking for, but because of the little bit higher percentage than what you're looking for, I'd be willing to go down to around 650,000 for the base salary. So, any thoughts on where that would look?
Yeah. Again, I think we're definitely in the right range for all these numbers. You mentioned earlier that the creative control aspect of this was a significant interest of yours.
Yes.
How about we move and discuss some of those first, and we
Okay.
revisit the financial numbers after we
Absolutely.
talk that over.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So just to give kind of more background on the interest there, having that editorial control is pretty important to me. I find that that's where my creative vision is carried out, and I have as a director having the expertise in that field and keeping the vision consistent is really important. It's kind of reflective of my past success, as we talked about. It's essential to the quality of the film, and I think that I'm directly tied to that. So I don't want to compromise the film's success by competing visions or post production is a very important time for the film to come together, and so having cohesive control of that, I think, will set it up for success. And on that note, having the post production editing process be a good timeline to where that all of it is solidified, the pieces come together, having enough time to make it a quality piece rather than rushing it. For some deadlines, I know you mentioned the blockbuster summer, but to be truthful, the past ones that I worked on that were so successful, I didn't rush for those timelines, and it still saw great success.
Definitely.
So I would really love to have a year-long post-production to get all the editing done, to see it to the very final product. I think that's really important for me, and so that's kind of where I stand on the post-production editing process. So
Okay, so it sounds like a part of your vision for this film is that you would like kind of a year to work on it after shooting all that.
yes.
I don't think that's necessarily a problem because we can
Okay.
always push it to the next year summer, right? So I
Yes.
think we can probably let you have that 12 month as long as we kind of agree ahead of time that hey that's the time you have, right? Like it's not going to
Yes.
turn into 18 months or
Yes.
24 months.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think keeping it in a time frame that's structured is important just for, the flow of things. So I
Yeah.
definitely agree with that. And I know it could be seen as a bit of a long time. So in terms of the pre-production budget being tied to that, I think having more time on the front end, maybe we could have not as extensive of a budget on the front end if that matters to you, in terms of financial upfront costs.
Yeah.
I think because the editorial control on the back end is really important to me, I'd be willing to be flexible on the front end.
Okay.
Would 300,000 or 350, 300,000 around there, for the pre-production budget if we get the 1 year post schedule.
Okay. And given if we were to go with one of those numbers 300, 350, how many locations do you think you would need to film
Yeah.
at outside of the studio?
So ideally 3 locations. I think it would really add to the box office appeal. I think audiences love seeing exotic locations in there, and so having that visual appeal, would be wonderful. Um, I will say I'm willing to be flexible with that and wanted to see where the production studio sees, non-local locations versus more Hollywood areas. So does the production studio have flexibility with locations?
Well, we have a little bit of flexibility, but that being said, as you know, we're a massive studio.
Mhm.
We have excellent, tremendous set pieces.
Mhm.
We used them very successfully in the past for
Yeah.
Legally Blonde and the whole line of sequels we had.
Mhm.
That being said, I understand that this isn't necessarily the same type of movie.
Mhm.
So I think we can probably work in having, one or two locations outside of the set.
Okay.
Again, that being said, if you're willing to be flexible with some of the other aspects, I think
Mhm.
that could probably be fine.
Um, I would be I definitely will be flexible with the locations. I think having at least one is important. I think two would be a wonderful addition, especially with a romantic thriller like this, like Titanic and Da Vinci Code. Seeing those offset locations, added to the appeal and the box office success. Um, but in terms of balancing the flexibility here, I'd be willing to do a mix of locations. I think that would help save costs while also maintaining the visual appeal. So, in terms of, like you said, some other aspects, I'd be interested in being flexible there. Um, let's see.
So, say we allowed for one exotic location there.
Yeah.
Do you think that $300,000 on the pre-production budget would be enough if we also, let's give you the 12 months post production for you to do your editing and really take your time and do what you need to do
Make
for
sure
the
it's
film?
right.
Yeah.
Mhm. I would be okay with that. I'd
Okay.
rather see more exotic locations, but I think having that time to really develop the film afterwards, is most important to me. So I'd be willing to go to one location if you think that in the budgetary, situation for the production studio, that mix with one location is what would be ideal. I think that would be a compromise we'd be willing to do.
Yeah, I mean, if that worked for you and you can make that one location work,
Mhm.
I think in that 12 months of time post production, you
We
can
should
really,
be set.
you can do some crazy things with CGI
I
these
agree.
days. So
I agree.
yeah.
I mean, Game of Thrones is all over the place.
Right. So so it sounds like you have been very flexible with the budgetary aspects of this project here. I know that you said that maintaining full creative control is extremely important to you.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on what kind of editorial control the studio might be involved in the project?
So I just want to recap before we move on. So we were looking at doing one exotic location.
Correct.
Do you have any thoughts on where that would be? I have a couple thoughts, but I wanted to see if we wanted to settle that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, given that this is leaning half Titanic as a movie, I think somewhere in water would
Somewhere
probably be
water
good. But
involved.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well. Yeah.
I could see Bahamas boat getaway, make it really dramatic. The two leads driving off into the sunset sort of thing. So maybe Bahamas, we consider that.
Okay, I mean, I will leave that in your excellent hands.
Perfect.
But yeah, let's just go.
Sounds
You get to pick the one place you go. And there you go.
Wonderful. Okay, so the one exotic location, TBD, maybe Bahamas.
Yep.
We are going to do the 12-month post-production schedule.
Right.
And have that $300,000 pre-production budget.
Yep. Yeah, that sounds
to reflect,
right.
Even it out. Okay, perfect. All right. So back to your question about the editorial control. It's definitely very important to me. I think if I could see a bit greater bonus on the back end, I'd be willing to give more of leeway with the editorial process and the editing rights. That being said, I'd be willing to kind of be flexible with those two in comparison. So where are the production studio's interest in terms of the editing rights? Is that something that is very important to you in terms of, I know budget's very important, so how do you see those two?
Well, I think at the end of the day, this all ties back into cost management for us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we typically like to see studio involvement in the editing process, just so that we can kind of rein in directors that kind of go crazy in terms of editing methods and costs post filming. That being said, if you're willing to come down a little bit on the bonus percentage, I think we can give you full creative control. I mean, given your past successes, we don't want to get in the way of you making the movie, right? Mm-hmm. We want you to make this great film. We just would like you to work with us in terms of our main interest, which is the cost and budgetary concerns here. So, I mean, what would you think about giving you full creative control? Okay. And then, I mean, would you take a 5% profit sharing on this? I know, it's a little bit below what you're asking for, but I think with giving you free control, that 5% number might be, in nominal dollar terms, much higher than what you receive or anybody else receives, just because how successful this film will be, right?
Definitely. I understand where you're coming from. And thank you for the leeway and the consideration and the editing. I think that, that's something important that we can also align with the finances that are important to you. And so I think if I could get full editing control, that would be wonderful. I think the 5% would be something I would consider, although it is lower than what I was looking for. Mm-hmm. But since you have been so flexible and understanding on some of the other aspects that I find important, I think that I'd be willing to work with that. I think with the smaller bonus percentage, the salary would be a bit more important for me on the front end, just kind of, having that financial insurance if I'm not getting as much as I expect a little bit on the back end.
Yeah.
So if I went with the 5% bonus with a base salary of $650,000, maybe work with the studio and kind of balance those two?
Yeah. I, I think, given your, past successes, I definitely wouldn't expect you to take the exact same base salary, as you did get for your last films. I think, yeah, 650 number, I think that would work
That's
with the studio,
okay.
yeah.
Is that something that you think the studio can handle up front? Yeah, I know you said this is the first major film that you've worked on. I can imagine the production studio overall has managed different size films. But do you think that resource wise that this sounds like could be handled?
Yeah, I mean, like I said previously, I think that typically we would kind of match what you did on the last film,
Hmm.
and that's what we do for a typical director. But again, we want you because you're not a typical director, right? So,
Yes.
I mean, I think 650 would probably work for us.
Okay.
You've been tremendously flexible with some of the other budgetary numbers. So, yeah, I think 650 would be good
Okay.
there. Um, Now, there's one more, I guess, financial issue we haven't discussed yet, which would
Yes.
be kind of the personal location budget.
Yes.
What does that entail to you?
So, because I envisioned a couple locations, to me that would be kind of the basic stuff involved when you go live on a location to shoot for an extended period of time.
Right.
So whether that be lodging and accommodations,
Yeah.
any food situation, depending on how long you'd be there, is how extensive it would be. So since I was looking for around 950 a day. That considering where I was at with the three locations that I was hoping for. So since we're not doing as many locations, I would be willing to be flexible with that. Wanted to see your perspective on what the studio thinks would be reasonable there.
Yeah. So, that number you said is a little high. I know, granted, it was with the three locations in mind.
Yes.
Um, I'm sure you've been to our location here. We have great facilities. We got a catering team taking care of everything you need, back massages, whatever you need.
That's
and I'm
wonderful.
sure that you can stay at your nice house, in the hills. So, granted, we're moving this to one location. Would you take $500 per diem? Granted, we'll give you free reign of everything that our studio offers. You can use it for sure.
I think that would be fair. That sounds, I mean, trying to back into the prices because, hotels and things can get pretty expensive. But I think that should be fine. Would 550 maybe work there? Just to allocate, I'm not sure. I mean, hotels can go for at least 400 a day, a night. Um, that's kind of pennies and nickels here, but
I think that we don't. That's certainly a number that we try not to set a precedent for. We don't want every director coming to us asking for more money for per diem. That would quickly be a problem.
Yeah.
I think that I'm gonna hold my ground here for the 500 number.
Okay, that's fair. I understand that.
Yeah.
What, if you don't mind me asking, what recent directors have y'all been working with and on the past films?
Like I said, I'm brand new to this VP
Okay,
role,
fair,
so
no worries.
I can definitely find out that information for
Okay,
you later
sounds
and
good.
let you know.
Wanted to see if I had any friends in the business
Yeah.
with you.
I'm sure you do, right? But yeah. Great. Well, looks like we got kind of the financial issues settled
Definitely.
here. Would you want to move on to the
Yeah,
casting and
definitely.
production team?
Absolutely. Are there any specific actors or positions that you find are critical to the film, or any specific actors that you have in mind that you think would do well?
Yeah. So, this being kind of like a part romance film, you definitely need a great male lead. You definitely need a great female lead, right? I personally, for the male lead, prefer Harrison Ford.
Okay.
we kind of worked together in the past. He owes me a favor, and
Oh.
I think he has kind of the right appeal to both men and women
Okay.
for this type of role. So that would be my top pick for the male lead. In terms of the female lead, I think that J Lo seems perfect for the part. Love how she acts in movies. She's big right now. So yeah, and then from my understanding, there's needs to be a child star as well, right?
Yes, it does.
There's a variety of different people we can pick for that.
Mhm.
The top of my list seems to be Dakota Fanning. She seems
Gotcha.
very popular with the kids and adults. She's had plenty of experience kind of in similar roles, I suppose.
Mhm.
And, she's also been, nominated for a bunch of awards and stuff. So, yeah.
Gotcha.
What about you?
Well, yeah, thanks for letting me know. I like some of those ideas, especially Dakota Fanning excites me. I think she's a really great rising child star right now that
Yeah.
I think would fit the role pretty well. So I think that would be a good option that
Yeah.
we could definitely move forward with. So I think that would be wonderful.
Mhm.
In terms of the leads are pretty important to me because they carry the show. And so I think having large, box office known names really drives the audiences, brings, the revenue in. So my main choices were Tom Cruise for the male lead. He has an incredible fan base and really would carry this role very well. He really fits the mold. Same for Angelina Jolie for the female lead. She's kind of exactly the view that I'm picturing for this film as, just the ideal character of what I'm seeing. She's also a great friend of mine and I'd love to work with her. She's great to work with. And so would love to see those two. I know J-Lo is a great singer, but I am worried she's a bit more focused on her singing career, and I'm not sure if she fits my creative vision as much.
Yeah.
And so I would really love to see Angelina Jolie. Is there what's your perspective on Angelina Jolie? Is that something that you would consider?
So our concern with Angelina Jolie is that she's got too many things going on right now. Like you said about J Lo with the her singing. From my understanding, Miss Jolie has a lot of work with was it like UNICEF or being a goodwill ambassador for the United Nations, and she's got a bunch of kids that are numbers are growing every day. Is what I've been informed of. So we think that she may. We think that this movie might be putting too much on her plate, so to speak.
Okay.
That being said, for the male lead, Tom Cruise for us might be a little too expensive. He's been tremendously successful in the past. Like I'm sure you know by now, like our main concern here is the budget.
Yes.
So,
definitely.
Would you be willing to take Harrison Ford if we do let Angelina Jolie do the female lead role? And since you have a existing relationship with her, you may be able to better gauge what she's able to handle better than I can, just like I kind of can with Harrison Ford.
Definitely. I like the proposition. Angelina is a great friend, and I know you said potentially maybe too busy with stuff going on right now. I don't think that'll stop her, truthfully, knowing her. I think that's definitely worth a conversation that I'd love to have with her, and I think because this is such a major film, that's something that she would definitely be interested in, because I know she typically loves these sort of roles. So I think that would be wonderful if we could grab her. I think she could really carry the movie. In terms of Harrison Ford, I am a little bit concerned that he's growing a little bit too old for the role that I'm imagining. But I understand where you're coming from with Tom being pricey for the budget that you're envisioning. And so if we can land on Angelina for the female lead, I think Harrison Ford would still be a good option. I know there's a lot of older actors out there that do an amazing job as a romantic lead. And so I think that could be a good pair. I think that would be okay.
Yeah, I appreciate you agreeing with Harrison. Another concern we have with Tom Cruise is he's gotten have some bad press recently with all the Scientology stuff.
Oh gosh.
And we just definitely don't want to, we want to keep the market for this film as
Yeah.
wide as possible, and we don't want to,
Mhm.
alienate any potential
Yeah.
viewers or ticket buyers to do this antics with Scientology. So
Focus on the
Yeah.
acting and,
Yeah,
and not the actors' issues
Right.
behind the scenes.
yeah,
I
no,
get that. I understand.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be a good pair.
Okay.
And then with Dakota Fanning as the child star, I think that would be great.
Yep.
And then I know we have one more role that we need to consider for an important part of this film, that being the production designer.
Right.
I was thinking of Sandra Neal, if you know of her. I've also worked with her in the past, and she does a really good job of balancing the quality of the film while also maintaining a low cost budget for major films. And
Yeah.
she's done a great job of that, and keeps me in line. Directors, creativity can be costly, and I understand that. So I think Sandra does a really good job of keeping everything pretty balanced. So do you have any thoughts on the production designer role?
Yeah, actually, our top pick was also Sandra Neal.
Awesome.
We've known her work. We know, like you said, she's great at what she does, as
Mhm.
well as the aspects that the studio cares about in
Mhm.
terms of cost and budget. So, 100% we would go with Sandra Neal.
Wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited about that. I'm trying to think, are there any other aspects going into, I know this is your first major film to work on as a VP, is there any concerns that you need to hear about from me, or anything else that you think needs to be settled as we approach going into this film?
As far as I understand it, we covered all the important parts. I think the only question I have might be, what do you want the sequel to be named?
Oh wow! What do we want the first one to be named?
Right, yeah, but maybe
something
that first,
dramatic.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So if you want to recap kind of the points
Definitely.
we've agreed on my end, I have the director's base salary of $650,000 base.
Yes.
Great. We have a pre-production budget of $300,000.
Mm-hmm.
Great. We have a post-production schedule, 12 months, so we don't rush the editing and
Yes.
such.
That would be wonderful.
For the percentage of the gross director's bonus, we have 5%.
Yes.
Great.
That'll be okay.
And then we've agreed to one location outside of the set.
Yes. Get
Okay.
that mix of back and forth.
Yeah, get some water in there.
Exactly.
We're going to give you full editorial control in terms of creative
Mhm.
decisions. Giving your assurances that we're going to keep this within budget constraints.
Yes.
Perfect. And then for the personal location budget, we are going with, I think it was 500.
Yes.
Right.
The 500.
Perfect. And then on to the casting decisions. Child star, we both like Dakota.
Yep.
Perfect. I think she's gonna do great.
Yes.
And then for male lead, we'll go with Harrison Ford.
Mhm.
I'll give him a call, after this meeting.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll be excited. And you can do the same
What a
thing
great
for
favor.
you can do the same thing for Angelina.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I know she'll be excited about it.
Perfect. And then Sandra Neal is who we both want to see doing the production. So
Definitely. And then last question, in terms of that post-production schedule, I know 12 months is an extended period. Are there any deadlines, things that within that time period that I should be aware of, or any concerns that you have while that's going on?
So, I mean, like you're asking if there's any like sub deadlines within that 12 months we
Or
need to
just-
meet like thresholds we need to cross by certain times.
More like, does the production studio have anything going on in there that I should be aware of during that time period, just to be prepared for during the post-production process?
I'm not aware of anything that we need to involve ourselves with. I can definitely look
Gotcha.
into that a little bit and
Okay.
give you an answer. But as far as I know at this point, you have full control of how that process
Okay.
works. Just the only deadline is that 12 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Perfect. Okay. I think that this looks really good and I'm excited about it. I think this definitely aligns, reasonable budgetary situations. I know some budgets aren't as high as I imagined, but I think that's reasonable, especially getting the editorial control and that post production timeline.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited about it, and I look forward to working with the studio, and I'm excited for your new role as VP. So thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Appreciate it. Yeah, great to be working with you as well. If we can add, another award for you and one for me. So
Yeah. Let's make it the next big hit. I'm confident.
Great.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
I'm excited.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
Yeah, me too.